Morning guys, this is a 115 horsepower OptiMax Mercury. We're having some kind of a fuel delivery problem with this. It was last operated on 4th of July, Canyon Lake, Texas. Didn't have any kind of problems with it. It is now 2nd of October. When we tried to start this yesterday, it would turn over fine but would not fire. When we put fuel directly into the cylinders, they would fire no problem. So electrical problem is ruled out. It looks like fuel delivery is our issue here. As long as I'm going to go ahead and look at this problem, I thought I would go ahead and put together a YouTube video just in case. I know I looked and did not see a whole lot of information on this. This right here is the water fuel separator. We've taken the fuel filter out. That was a major problem. We tried to do it with just a screwdriver. Well, let me find that here. We tried to do it with just a screwdriver and it kind of chewed up the top of it. I strongly recommend you go to a Mercury dealer and get that little part right there. It's less than $5, and that fits right in the top and helps you to get that out without chewing it all up. And this thing is in there really tight. It was a major pain getting that back out of there. When we started messing with this yesterday, we went through the proper procedure as recommended by Mercury. We pulled this line off and dropped it into a container. Loosened this right here, which has allowed fuel and everything else to flow out of here down into our container. We got all kinds of particles and other things. I suspect one of the problems with this motor is that the gray fuel line issue happened to us. Apparently ethanol based gas deteriorates the inside of this gray pipe and just causes it to decompose. All that stuff that's in there goes and gets caught up in the fuel filter and possibly in the fuel pumps, which are located in here, and clogs them up, hence no fuel delivery. What I'm going to be doing here is loosen this up so that I can take the top off, clean it all out real good, check both of the fuel pumps. One of them lays in the bottom right here, the other one is up in here. I'm going to check those out real good, make sure they work, clean them out, get all the debris out of there, and hopefully that'll solve our problem. We are supposed to go fishing tomorrow, so this is a high stress, time limited situation. I'll keep you updated as I go. To get this off, I pulled out this bolt. Goes right in there. About that size. I've got one more here, one down there. I also pulled the clamp off of here. You need to have some of these things handy, unless you've got cable ties and one of those tools that'll put them on real tight, because this is the way they clamp the hoses on. You can get those off real easy by just sticking a sharp small screwdriver right in there and unlatching it, and this far end right here will just pull right out. Easy enough to get off. You don't have to worry about trying to cut it or anything like that, but make sure you got something handy to put back on there. I've taken out all the screws that hold the top on here. I will have to get that off, I think. Pull this connector apart. This will have to come off of there too. I intend to take this whole unit off and thoroughly clean it out with carburetor cleaner. This is a fuel pump that pumps fuel from the tank in the boat and delivers it into the fuel filter. From here, as explained to me by the Mercury dealer, from here a low pressure fuel pump, which is located down in here, keeps the fuel level inside here at a certain level and provides fuel to the high pressure fuel pump, which is in here. The high pressure fuel pump presses sends the fuel probably at what, 90 to 100 psi up into here over to the fuel rail. So we're going to take all this apart, open it up, and clean it out real good, and hopefully that'll solve our problem. Okay, I've got that off, turned it upside down. I'm draining it into this bucket, and down in the bottom there you can see just some of the stuff that came out. Now, we drained this thing yesterday and got all kinds of trash out of it, but this is still coming out. Next step, now that it's drained, this is upside down right here, but I've got to get this off. There's an or I guess a gasket in here. It's making it real difficult to get this top off of here, but once I get that pried off, I'll clean out the entire inside. I'll show you that as soon as I... Now here's one of those damn it, what do I do now moments. I got all the screws out, and just so you know, there is a out of sight screw hidden right in there. Once I got that out, this end lifted up fairly easy. This one over here, this side, needed a little bit of coaxing, but it did come off. And then I could lift it, the top about this much, and that fuel pump right in there apparently has wires going up down to the bottom there, and they were getting kind of stretched. I could see that. I didn't want to yank on this, and I could look up underneath and see that there's an O-ring around this fuel pump motor right here. Oops, let me get you so you can see. There's an O-ring around this fuel pump motor that was binding up in here. And what I ended up doing is taking a universal tool such as this and very gently putting it up in there, up along the top of that O-ring, and very, very carefully prying the top off. That O-ring wants to stick on the inside of here, so that's an issue. Just make sure you don't try to yank on that or you'll pull these wires out. Just thought you might like to have a heads up on that. But after that, well, it's kind of stuck in there again. You can see the O-ring right there. It's kind of bent out of the way a little bit. But once that comes loose, the top comes off real easy. I'm not going to try this with one hand. Last thing I need to do is break something else. So we'll be back with you in a minute. Here we are with it off. Low pressure fuel pump is down in the bottom there. High pressure fuel pump right there. Float valve assembly right there. I'm going to be taking this apart very carefully, making sure I always take a picture of everything, every step along the way, just to make sure I don't get confused about what goes where. But if you have any experience with float valves and fuel tanks, you'll know that there's a reed right under there that controls the flow of fuel into that reservoir. Okay, this is upside down right now. When it's down like that, fuel flows in. When it fills up, it closes off the fuel access like that, and then as the engine burns the fuel, it drops back down, lets more fuel back in, keeps it at more or less a constant level. So all that's got to be cleaned out. And let's see, black hole down there, you can't really see. There's a lot of trash, corrosion. Yeah, there you go. All that stuff's got to come out, and I'll bet you anything there may be some blocked vents or something in there. This fuel pump right here, as I said, draws fuel from the gas tank. I'm going to take that apart. There are two diaphragms inside there that work on vacuum produced by the action of the pistons in the motor. So I'll take that apart, make sure all that's cleaned out really good too. I just verified that both of the fuel pumps are working. I took some jumper wires and attached those to the battery in the boat.
And being very careful with polarity, I touched the red one to here and briefly touched the ground wire, the black one, and this motor did operate. I did the same with these two pins here, being careful of polarity again, and the motor, the low pressure fuel pump in the bottom, worked also. So it's not a fuel pump motor problem. Again, probably just, wait a minute, what's that? Where in the heck did that come from? Huh. That's a mystery I'll probably never solve. Anyway, I don't think it was causing any kind of a problem if it's been in there. Okay, next step. I'm going to take off this and get it all cleaned up. I'll bring you back as soon as I got it disassembled. Okay, got the primary fuel pump opened up. Three main parts to it. This right here goes on the back side. This one goes on the front like that. This membrane right here is what uses a vacuum, the cycling vacuum from the motor, to push fuel around. One of the things you want to do with that is hold it up to the sun and see if you can find any holes or cracks or anything like that. This one looks good. And get to that in a second. Here's the other one. Most outboards that I've worked on have been smaller than this one. This is a 115, and they only have one of these diaphragms in them. And I don't see any holes in that one either, so that's okay. Be very careful with these. You don't want to rip them and tear them. Probably the best thing to do is just get a rebuild kit for this fuel pump, but we're in a huge hurry, and these don't look like they are in any kind of bad shape at all. This right here, I guess you call this a dual stage fuel pump. What we see here, these round things are check valves. They'll allow fuel to flow in one direction but not the other. So as one of those diaphragms creates a vacuum, fuel will go past this one right here, and then when pressure fills this little cavity in here, this check valve will close and not allow fuel to pass through. It will somehow or another make its way into the other chamber and get pushed out this way, and that way you have positive fuel flow through here. All this looks really good. I don't see any kind of real corrosion in there. I don't see any kind of dirt in there. So I'm pretty happy with that. Next step, I'm going to reassemble that and try to figure out how to get all that stuff out of the bottom of there. I do have some carburetor cleaner. I'll spray that in there and see what I can do with that. This is the, if I had to say, this is the worst area I've found inside of this device. Hopefully our problem is in there. A couple things about this primary fuel pump that you should be aware of. If you get in a situation where you don't really remember how it all goes back together, you see that arrow right there on the side? All the parts line up with that arrow. Okay, notice there's one on there. There's a series of 3 arrows on each of the diaphragms, just lining up with the middle one, and you'll be good to go. The screws on the outside here, all the heads are the same size, but threads are not. 2 of the screws are designed strictly to hold together the fuel pump assembly, and the other 2 have larger thread, and they are designed to hold the fuel pump assembly onto the motor. Just thought you'd like to know that. Okay, as I disassemble this, I am using one of my hat camera mounts. Hope you can see what I'm doing here. I cannot see the camera, so I don't know what it's aiming at. This is the float valve assembly. I'm going to very carefully take that off. There's a spring usually involved in small parts like that right there. Don't want to lose any of that. Always be very careful. Remember which way stuff goes in. Of course, not too many ways that'll go, but oops. Like I said, it looks like this little tiny spring clip right here has to fit over that little tooth sticking out right there when we put it back together. I don't see any kind of dirt or corrosion in there. Point that away. Don't want all that stuff getting bounced back into my eyes. Everything in here looks really clean. There's a little bit of corrosion in there and right in there. I'll get that out too, but I'm not seeing the kind of corrosion I would expect from a problem that's completely starving the engine of fuel, which has got me really wondering exactly what's causing all this. This might be an issue here. There was some corrosion on that. That's the top of this high pressure fuel pump, and that's kind of corroded. This looks like it should be some sort of a seal. That's a rubber cork, it looks like. Now, I don't know if that corrosion there is going to be enough to keep fuel from being pushed through here up into the fuel rail. Hard to tell. I'll get that cleaned off too. As long as I got it open, clean everything. I don't see any kind of dirt down in the bottom. That's the low pressure fuel pump down there. I guess, now, I don't know if you can see down inside, there is a, at the other end of this wire right here, is I guess what you'd call a sensor. That is to detect water. I guess the resistance between gas and water is different, so that the motor's computer can determine the difference between the two. If this chamber fills with water, then that sensor tells it to shut down. So it looks like it's got some corrosion. I'll see if I can get that out and clean it too. There is the sleeve. I took off the high pressure fuel pump. The old one was corroded. Let's see. Had some corrosion on it. I couldn't really get that off, and I definitely wanted to make sure I had a good seal on that. Now, rant alert. I went to the Mercury dealer. This little sleeve, which is perfectly cylindrical, it's not tapered or specially engineered or anything like that. Just a little rubber sleeve that goes on there. Made in the USA, $12.50. Yeah, okay. And we wonder why this country is in such bad shape. Buy American. It's all thoroughly cleaned out. Everything I could find. I removed both of the electric fuel pumps. The one laying in the bottom of here, and this one
standing up and down. Make sure you oil the O-rings before you put them back in. Got everything cleaned out as well as I could. Got another fuel filter put in there. I've got to get some small hose clamps so I can get all these put back on, and then we'll do the final test, see if anything I did had an effect. Looks like we're going fishing. And by the way, something else you should always check. There's a block of fuses right here. One of those is actually burned out. I think that might have been the fuse for the fuel pumps. So check, doesn't hurt to check everything.